Okay, hold on. Let me open my beverage.
Are you recording?
Of course.
Oh, nice.
My carbonated water.
I'm very professional. I drink more water than you. I don't throw that in my face. That I'm having a ginger ale right now instead.
Not throwing anything in your face. I am trying to drink more water, and I've discovered that when it comes to the pop or beer or water, I like the carbonation more than I like the flavors. And so...
But speaking of water, it's a car that runs on water, man.
Hello and welcome to We Watch TV. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Hope.
And today we are talking about that 90's show. And of course, I don't think we could talk about this show without talking about that 70's show.
Of course not. That 70's show was iconic, barring the disastrous last season. Other than that, I feel like it's one of the best sitcoms.
You know, that brings up an interesting conversation point that we probably don't need to talk about too much here, but I wonder, how many sitcoms could we name that were excellent with the exception of their last season? Because Scrubs immediately comes to mind.
See, I don't count. This is a whole other podcast topic. I don't even count that as the last season because like all the main people were gone. Not just, okay, so like on that 70s show, like Eric and then Kelso was on it a little bit less. But like Scrubs' final season, like Elliot was in, what's Zach Braff's character? His name has just completely slipped my mind. We're barely on it at all.
Yeah, but they were there, barely on. I mean, just as barely on it as Topher Grace was on.
The only thing good about it was Dave Franco. No, Topher Grace only showed up in like one episode of the last season of that 70's show. So he was in as many
episodes of the last season of that 70's show as Zach Braff was in on Scrubs. So my analogy...
He was only in one episode?
My analogy stands.
He was only in one episode of the last season? Yeah, but I mean, it was almost like Scrubs had a whole new cast. We're going way off topic here.
Well, Dr. Cox was still there.
It was terrible the last season. I agree.
I agree. It was terrible, and I don't count it.
You want a show that's good from start to finish? Parks and Rec. We'll talk about that someday. Every season, right. Every episode of Parks and Rec, Chef's Kiss.
Okay. All right. That 90's show.
That 90's show.
A spinoff of that 70's show.
Yep.
And my first concern when I heard they were making this show, they announced the show and immediately announced that Kurtwood Smith
and Deborah Jo
Rupp were in it as main characters.
Red and Kitty,
and
Eric
so
Foreman's
that made
parents.
Me feel good. But my main concern with the show was they were going to try and cash in too much on nostalgia.
Which they do, but they did it in a good way.
But then what I realized while watching that 90's show, because so we're about the age of the kids in that 90's show.
No, we're
like, a little younger, but not
we'd be
much.
Like 5. Okay, so Leia turns 15 that
96.
summer. No, in 95.
Okay.
And we were like 10 in 95.
I was 11 in 95.
Well, yeah. So we're like
because I can
just
do math.
On the cusp of being younger than them.
Okay, we're just on the we're like, but we grew up in that same time frame.
Coming from my math skills.
And so what I realized was the nostalgia they threw into this show was just at about the same level I think they did in that 70's show. It's just that we didn't
notice it
understand
as much.
It because that nostalgia wasn't targeted towards us.
Yeah.
That nostalgia was targeted towards our parents' generation.
I remember sometimes my mom would watch episodes of that 70's show with me and would laugh at some of the 70's references, where I was more interested in kind of the characters, like what they were doing, that I feel like sometimes I almost even forgot it was set in the 70's until like, other than like the set designs and all of that. And when they brought that 90's show, suddenly we're getting all the funny like 90's references. Like they do one episode where they spoofed 90210, which was one of my favorite shows. Even though it was a little bit older than me, I kind of got more into it in like syndication, but it was just excellent. They kept doing all these like little 90's references, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, they would be remiss if they don't just make a little joke about 90210, and then they took that joke, they took it completely over the top, went total 100% on it. They made the Kelly, Brenda, Dylan triangle references. By the way, team Brenda and Dylan. They got Brian Austin Green, who played David Silver, to show up. They basically did the opening sequence, and then in the first season of 90210, or Beverly Hills 90210, the proper name, before they aged him up, David Silver, Brian Austin Green character, was a freshman, and he'd always be like, "Is it because I'm a freshman?" And they had him looking his age now, which he's got to be I'd say maybe close to 50. Yeah.
50 at this point.
He was one of the younger cast members of that series, and he's like, "Is it because I'm a freshman?"
What do you mean they aged him up?
Okay, we're wildly going off topic.
I want to go off topic. What do you mean?
So the original first...
You got in a time machine?
No. The first season of 90210,
Sucks.
season 1, shut up, the characters are juniors. David Silver was a freshman. So then, the second season, then we had Summer and everything, you would assume they'd be seniors. No, apparently they just glazed over the fact that they were juniors in the first season, and they make them juniors again. No one mentions it, no one says anything, and David Silver is a sophomore, so he was only one grade behind them, and then apparently
they all failed.
He was able to graduate with them.
Because of all the
drama. Donna Martin graduates. He was able to graduate with them, even though he was still one grade behind them, and he was a junior their senior year, because he apparently took a bunch of advanced classes.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is...
Our people don't want to hear about 90210 right now.
Incredibly intelligent, and they're all idiots. They all failed.
Andrea Zuckerman is the class president.
Well, they got so involved with their little dramas that they let their classes go.
Anyway, wildly off topic, like we do here on Apparently We Watch TV podcast.
I better make notes of all the things we're talking about.
But back to that 90s show. I was so excited when I found out they were going to do it. My worry was they were going to go down a path of Girl Meets World. I'm a huge Boy Meets World fan. And yes, Boy Meets World was a show for kids, but it actually dealt with some issues, and it was funny. I can go back and watch it, not just for nostalgia. I can watch an episode of Boy Meets World right now, and I think it's hilarious. I wanted to like Girl Meets World so bad. It was Corey and Topanga were coming back. They even brought in Sean, Mr. Feeney a couple times. They brought in the parents. But it was so Disney-fied. And I've seen some people have made comments that 90s show was Disney-fied, but they've been more referring to the kids. And I'll get into that in a minute, why I think people say that, because I did not get that vibe. And I was just worried that it was just going to be silly and not the good type of silly humor that we liked. I saw Red and Kitty were going to be regulars in every episode. I was like, awesome. I figured, even though it wasn't announced, I was like, the OG cast is going to show up, come on, at some point, I'm sure they would. And then they all did. I think Topher Grace was probably the harder one that they got to come back, and he was able to show up for one episode. I mean, you had to have Eric Foreman because he named his daughter Leia. My biggest disappointment is that I didn't get a moment of Eric just pointing out, his reaction to Leia and Luke being brother and sister, because they do a whole episode in that 70s show where he's like, "What? Luke and Leia are destined to be together. Why would she be with Han?" Which team Leia, Han?
So wait, I'm confused. You don't, when you think about that Topher Grace as an actor, you don't immediately the first thing that comes to his mind is not Venom from Spider-Man 3?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
The whole reason he wasn't in the end of that 70s show?
Yeah, I do not think of that. And then it started coming out that more and more of the OG cast would be on, and I thought it was great. Yes, it was a little silly in moments, but I found it I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I think their daughter Leia is perfectly cast.
She was perfectly cast and perfectly written, I thought.
Yeah, you see a little bit of Donna in her, but I feel like she did her homework. I feel like she had to sat down and watch episodes, because she even had Eric's mannerisms. Yeah. Jay Kelso, Michael Kelso, and apparently Jackie Burkhart's son. I thought he was great. They didn't make him quite as dumb as Kelso was. Womanizing.
Which is a criticism for me.
You wanted him to have a...
No, well...
Jackie wasn't stupid.
My criticism of Leia, I agree. Great character, well-written, really reflects the parents. The other kids on the show, and I don't know if this is because of the actors or because of the writing or a combination of which, they just weren't nearly as memorable to me as the...
We haven't really they're not beloved to us yet.
Sure. But, you can go back and watch season 1 of that 70s show. You can get 2 or 3 episodes in.
All of
and it's
them.
Kelso, you know exactly, he's a himbo.
I felt
You know
like
exactly what he is, and it's
I think they didn't want to make them carbon copies of the original show.
I understand that. Yes.
Nate, the boy that lives next door to Leia, that is the stepbrother of Gwen. I felt like Nate had a lot of like kind of the idiot part of Michael Kelso's characteristics, and then his sister, his half sister Gwen, she gave me kind of Stephen Hyde vibes a little bit. Like she's kind of the cool one. And then I think they were trying to make us think that Ozzy could be like Fez, but I didn't get that vibe at all. I felt like Ozzy was like his own character. And by the way, I've seen my precious poor little Gen Z people, if any of you guys are listening, that's not an Apple Watch he's wearing. Back in the 90s, they had these watches that were like a calculator watch, and it does look like an Apple Watch, and that's what he is wearing. And then Jay Kelso, I thought Jay Kelso was probably my favorite next to Leia of the new kids. Because I like it that he wasn't 100% carbon copy of his dad. He had kind of the womanizing about him, but I thought that actor did a really good job. I think where people are saying, oh, it's the new cast was very Disney-ish, I think it's because they cast people that were closer to the ages they're playing. Whereas in the original series, minus Mila Kunis, who kind of lied about her age to get the part, 'cause she was only 14 in season 1. I think that they were all playing a little bit older, like they were in their late, like I think like early 20s, maybe like 19, some of them, when they were cast. And these kids, I think they said the kid that plays Ozzy is actually 13, so he was even playing younger. So I think that's why like they just look younger. And also, I'm sorry guys, I got to be the one to say it. We're all older when that 70s show came out. So of course we're gonna look younger to us. Of course.
No, and none of my complaints about those actors or what they had to do in the show like ruined it for me at all. And I think maybe some of it too is just I enjoyed the scenes with Red and Kitty.
Yeah, they carried Red and Kitty carried the show.
Is more of my nostalgia towards the original show, I think, than it is towards.
Yeah. Well, who was your favorite? My favorite character on the original show, that 70s show, if you're not talking about like the cast of kids, it's Red Foreman all day long.
Obviously, the dad we all wish we had.
So, give us your favorite Red Foreman line right now.
Dumbass.
I like my favorite episode of that 70s show was when they ate Red and Kitty, and I think Donna's parents were there too. They accidentally ate Hyde's brownies. And Red's like, here comes Peter Cottontail hopping down the bunny trail. And then doesn't he sell the Vista Cruiser and they have to go get it back? He's like, you can cruise the Vistas. So the Vista Cruiser, one of my favorite cameos, speaking of, makes an appearance. It's still going. They give that to Leia for her birthday. Now, one thing I have to address, because if somebody comments this to me, it's driving me nuts. I keep seeing it on TikTok. I keep seeing people make little articles about it. They're like, oh, Leia's age is like sus with the timeline. They're like, what if, Randy, the character that nobody liked, by the way, in the last season, they're like, what if he's the actual father? No. One, technically speaking, when Eric did come back, if we're wanting to actually focus on that, Leia could have been born prematurely early. The math still would work. And that being said, I love that 70s show. Love it. But after about season 3 or 4, the whole timeline is askew. We have like 3 seasons that are supposedly in 1 year, and we celebrate 3 different Christmases. So guys, it's a sitcom. Let's not do that. I mean, Leia Foreman is Eric. She had a little bit of Donna in her, but she's Eric Foreman's kid 100%.
I just want to address the people that are going so far as to analyze
people
the timeline on that 90s show.
We all have a lot of time on our hands.
Corroborated with the timeline on that 70s show. And then taking the time out of their day.
Yeah, and Jackie and Kelso would have had to have a baby like immediately to produce Jay Kelso.
What is wrong with these people? And she was
still technically with Fez, which that's a great thing that the 90s show did too, because I never liked it that Jackie ended up with Fez. Now, the person that I wanted Jackie to end up with was Hyde. Stephen Hyde. I'm not talking about the actor at all. So we're not even going to mention the actor's name. We're going to talk about Stephen Hyde. You need to separate the two. I always loved the character of Stephen Hyde.
Yeah.
It's a car that runs on Waterman. Hyde and Jackie. When I am a shipper, that's what I like to do when I watch shows. I know Daniel doesn't really give a crap about stuff like that, but you would agree with me. Hyde and Jackie were I thought they were even better than Eric and Donna.
I agree.
They were the best couple.
They had a better dynamic.
We're probably more like them. Maybe that's why we kind of like Hyde and Jackie a little bit. Huh?
What are you saying about me?
Well, stop being a bot. See, you guys can get that. So, but if Jackie was not going to be able to end up on Hyde, because obviously, that actor could not be on the show for understandable reasons. I think we're all okay with that. Did it suck not getting it because they all made appearances? Even Leo shows up to not have Hyde on there. Yes, but if I had to choose somebody else, it would have been obviously Kelso for Jackie, and I really think if you want to add realism to the show, I think it's probably the most realistic thing.
They always came back to each other.
They always came back to each other. Even when she was with Hyde, she had the whole get off my boyfriend. Yeah. And it just, for those two characters, it just makes sense. What they were on their second remarriage. This is our second remarriage. We got so speaking of pretty much everybody came back to make a cameo. Donna was in a couple episodes. We see Mr. Pinciotti. We see Fez. He's actually Fez. It's like
Tommy Chong.
We see Leo. And then, of course, we see Jackie and Kelso. So what was your favorite cameo appearance on that 90s show?
Be honest with you, Tommy Chong showing up.
Really?
Because he just looks exactly the same as he did in that 70s show. Like, he doesn't look like he's aged a day.
He shows up because...
He's aged up a couple times.
Yeah, they first find him after they leave the video store because they want to go find out who rented, Clerks, right?
Yeah.
And then he accidentally gives them,
and then he's walking around in the forest with them.
Which they never mention. They still never call it what it is, which I like. I like that they're keeping up with that.
Because, Eric and Donna... that were there to be functional, and they had good. I enjoyed Eric calling Leia a dumbass.
Caught her. Oh, that was just.
That
he
was
said
great.
He was going to put her foot in. Yeah. And it was just chef's kiss.
And that was great.
Like a full circle moment.
And Donna shows up a couple times.
The scene with them when he's like, I felt like this was geared towards people that watch the 70s show that, because we're all older now. We watched that when we were younger. When Red looks at the camera and says, "You're upstairs people now. How does it feel?" Like, I almost felt personally attacked by that. Like, thank you for pointing out that I'm so old now.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, can we veer off here for a second and talk about Topher Grace and how he hasn't aged?
Topher Grace hasn't aged a day. You can tell that Donna has aged.
Yeah.
You could even tell, that I feel like Mila probably looks the best because come on, she's super hot anyway. But she.
Oh my God, you're just trying to feed the Twitter people at this point.
She is one of, I feel like, the most attractive people. But she would be the youngest because she's not much older than we are. She was 14 years old when she started the show, so of course she's not going to look as old. But yeah, Topher Grace, you put that wig on him for Eric Foreman.
He just looks exactly like.
I just felt like they dragged him out of the 90s and then stuck him on that 90s show.
Yeah.
My favorite cameo, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go with one Michael Kelso. When he shows up, they hit me with a burn a damn Jackie. And then this is our second remarriage. I just thought it just worked. It worked. And the Michael, let's go.
You do that too well.
All too well.
Just substitute my name for it, and so you guys all know the life I live.
Kind of rectified the whole decision to put her with Fez because I feel like nobody liked that they ended up together in that 70s show, and then it kind of made like Jackie was with all the guys but Eric at one point, just no.
Yeah.
So I really like their neighbor lady. I thought she was going to annoy me when I saw the previews. I'm like, I'm not going to. And she's the mother of Gwen and Nate.
Yep.
I ended up finding her hilarious. Like, I really thought I was like, this woman's going to just annoy me and bother me. And she was in small doses. I think if she had been in every scene, I would have been like, I don't know about that. But it worked. And I thought her, camaraderie and, chemistry with Red and Kitty worked out well, too.
Yeah, and I got to say, too, that, you're trying to take a show and place it in the 90s. And as a kid that comes from this very specific situation, there's nothing more 90s than a single mom trying to make it along with their kids. Yeah, so it was interesting from that perspective, too, because I guess you had not Michael.
Are you forgetting what characters?
Yeah, I am. The one that wasn't on this season from the old
Hyde.
Show. Hyde's dad was kind of a single dad in that 70s show, but he showed up later.
Yeah, and then Hyde, remember it turned out that guy wasn't Hyde's dad in the end, I was hoping that we would at least have a little, like a reference to where the character of Hyde was. Maybe he was on a spiritual quest. Maybe he was in jail. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, that would break Kitty's heart for all she tried to do for Stephen Hyde if he was in jail. So I'm just going to pretend that Hyde is just out somewhere, maybe living his best Leo-type life.
I think
that's going to be like my headcanon
for every potential scenario that could take place from now going forward with that situation. Not mentioning him was the best.
Was probably the best choice. But yeah, Red and Kitty, they carried. I liked seeing a little bit. Red was the same, but he's a grandpa now.
Yeah.
He's softer, and I can tell you sometimes I see some very similarities with my dad and Red Foreman, and I can 100% say that my dad is so much softer with the grandkids than he was with us. And that's that's your job as grandparents. What does it say? They're supposed to be grand. I think that's from The Middle, another show we'll talk about someday. And I thought that he was still Red Foreman, but he was a little bit nicer to Leia than he was Eric. And I liked seeing it kind of flip, where Kitty got mad at her when Leia lied about going out and they went to that party, and that was good. I found myself loving the 90s references, and I think that's what we're circling back to at the start of the show, how you were kind of worried about that at first, and then you realized
overwhelming.
I think there were references in the 70s. We just didn't understand it.
But they weren't overwhelming, and they weren't trying to shove it down your throat.
It was just enough.
And if you go back to that 70s show, like the 90210 thing they did that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they did that kind. I mean, they did a whole 70s. Star Wars episode where they dressed up.
Yeah.
Didn't they do one where I can't remember, maybe Annie Hall or something they did. They did. I would have to go back and do a rewatch. They did a lot of spoofs. It was
on tone with the original show.
But I was so interested in the characters, the romances, the funny parts that I didn't really notice that. And which brings me to my next point. When I was on Twitter, I was looking at, I looked on the hashtag to see kind of what people were talking about. And a lot of the younger people that tuned in to watch that 90s show, which I'm so happy that they've gone back and watched that 70s show now because it's a great show, but they were zeroing in on the romances. So what did you think? Let's talk about the new cast of kids. Leia, great. I liked Jay. I feel like there's potential there. We're just not going to love them the way we loved the OGs, and we might never, because guess what? We're not kids anymore. It's just...
I think Jay is interesting because in future seasons, which by the way it is confirmed for a season 2.
Season 2, and I think we're going to have more episodes in season 2.
And I want to make another note because we forgot to do this last episode. You can find this show streaming on Netflix.
Yes.
I think they have an opportunity with his character because they've already established he is not his father, the exact carbon copy. I think they have an opportunity.
He's got the womanizing, but he's smarter.
But they've got the opportunity to make that almost a character trait that not only is he not like his father, but he actually doesn't want to be like him.
Yeah. I think he obviously I want him
maybe
to
maybe this sitcom won't go that deep.
I really would have, which we got to see Donna react to Leia dating a Kelso because Leia and Jay have a little fling.
And Red, but
I wanted to see Eric react to it, so I'm hoping they can get Topher Grace to come back. Speaking of characters coming back for season 2, I just took a screenshot before we recorded this. Ashton Kutcher talked about season 2. They said he's back. Wisconsin Ashton Kutcher reprised his role as Michael Kelso on that 70s show spinoff, but is he coming back for season 2? He said, I don't know. Nobody's even asked me. Kutcher 44 told E! News in an interview published on Friday, February 3rd. He said, I have no idea. I'm not in the weeds on that one. So he doesn't know yet, but I feel like with where he talked about basically that he and his wife, obviously Mila Kunis, they talked together and they're pretty much like, we have to go back and at least do, because that gave them their careers. And I really like it when actors are appreciative of that.
I think it's highly likely we'll see him.
Yeah. I don't think you'll see him very much longer. My one of my things, and I know we kind of talked about this, that I wish I could have seen them all together in the same, because we know they all filmed the same day. And we were talking, you were like, you told me in the kitchen one night, you were like, what kind of bums me out that it's obvious they all didn't stay friends, but that happens.
Then I thought about how many people from high school I'm still friends with, and suddenly it made all the sense in the world.
And you can still love those people, and but you move different places, you don't tend to hang out, and I think it's very realistic that they wouldn't have always associated. So it bum me out, yes, but at the same time, I mean, how many people? It's very rare that you hang out with people every day that you hunt out with in a basement. in and sat in a circle with in high school every single day. So I do think I would expect maybe not all of them, but I'm sure we'll get some more appearances.
Sorry, I was just looking through the cast list again and saw Brian Austin Green.
So of the new kids, besides Leia, you like Jay. Let's see her on this cast list.
I think Gwen has a lot of potential.
She reminds me a lot of Hyde.
Yeah, if they just need to we kind of complain sometimes about shows where they take a character and just turn them up to 11 on the crazy weird stuff. Like they kind of did that with Friends, right? Where every character as the seasons went on
almost became a more and
more of a caricature of
I still love Friends,
itself.
one of my favorite shows ever. But they definitely amped up Joey's stupidity. They amped up Monica's crazy.
In this show, I feel like they could turn each of those supporting characters up a little bit more.
Yeah, and I just think because we haven't had, the first, that 70s show, it was on, network television, is that how you refer,
it was on Fox, I think.
Yeah, where you have, 20 episode seasons. We only had, 10? So I think we haven't got to know them enough. I honestly felt chemistry with her and Leia at first, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they're going to go there. And apparently I'm not alone, because a lot of people on Twitter seem to feel the same way. So speaking of the ships, what did you think about the random little love triangle they did? I know it's season 1 of that 70s show, and every time I start that 70s show over, I barely remember that Hyde ever had a thing for Donna. And I'm like, oh, that's right. We had the Hyde, Donna, Eric kind of love triangle. And then, of course, later in the show, we had the Hyde, Jackie, Kelso triangle. What do you think about them with only 10 episodes? I thought it was a bit much. Springing, all of a sudden, she has this great, and I was like, oh, I'm glad she's making friends with other people outside of the group. And next thing I know, she and Nate are, almost kissing in the kitchen.
So,
and that's Gwen's stepbrother.
Because I don't live and die.
Half-brother.
Because I don't live and die by the ship.
Come on, you have to have a little bit of opinion.
I don't think too much of it. But from a writer perspective, I can see why that gives just a little bit more juice to the end of the season.
Yeah, and I guess maybe
to maybe
if
pray
younger
for
people
a second
are talking
season.
About it.
And yeah, if there are people
so
talking about it,
who do you like Leia better with then? You have to pick. I feel I haven't made up my mind yet. I have to see them all. I feel like every time I'm like, wow, she's only 15. That little girl's a child.
Yeah, I think that might be where I end my commentary on it.
And hello, that's why we're so old. The OG show, who is your favorite? That's one of my questions. However, I wrote.
Well, that's Hyde and Jackie.
Hyde and Jackie, favorite couple. Who was your favorite character of the kid? We already established that we both like Red. Kitty would be my second favorite character. So it's obvious, when those two were on that 90s show, I was set. But of the group of kids, who is your favorite OG character from that 70s show?
Hyde.
Yeah, I always loved Hyde. I had a big crush on Hyde. Everybody, I feel like all the girls always really liked Ashton Kutcher. And obviously Kelso, and yeah, he is super attractive, but there's just something about Hyde for me. I really liked him. Again, I'm talking about the character, not the actor. Fez just cracks me up. I feel like Wilmer Valderrama stepped back into that role, just snapped his fingers, and there's Fez on my screen again.
And also,
didn't miss a beat. I said good day.
For season 2, if there's anybody of the original cast besides Red and Kitty that's going to be
I feel like
prominent,
him.
I feel like he could step in there, especially because of that relationship he has with Gwen and Max's
Nate.
Gwen and Nate's Max is his actor name.
Yeah.
Mother. I think they could slide him in, and he could actually be more of a prominent character in season 2.
So the theme song. Do you like?
No, the first one's better.
They're still doing the in and out, but yeah, it'll always be the OG. It will always be best, but that's because it's the one we grew up on. Reboots in general, sometimes reboots, continuations, sequels, they're not always great, but I think that this one has done it right. And I think Kurtwood is one of the producers, right? Or he was heavily involved in getting, and I feel like when you are on a show as an actor and then you come back and do it, you want to do it right. And I think people need to give that 90s show a chance. If you haven't watched it yet and you were a fan of that 70s show, are you going to like it as much as that 70s show? Of course not. But I think it's fun, and it leans into the nostalgia, and there's potential.
I agree with you that 90s show is an excellent continuation
of
that
now?
70s show.
We promised we wouldn't talk about
But I disagree with you that it's always a good idea sometimes to have an actor come on as a producer for the preservation of character. See season 2 of Picard. Yeah. I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I feel like they wanted to do it right, and I think they did. There are other shows that come back that do not do it right. I'm not sure I would ever once, Friends to come back on the air again. And I guess
Yes.
I was about to say Frasier, but guess what? It's coming back. They've already filmed the pilot, so we'll see. I think everybody should give it a try. I know we're confirmed for season 2, so.
Dumbass. Thanks for listening to this episode of We Watch TV, a podcast about TV shows we watch. You can find more from Hope on Twitter at Little Runner or on Instagram at Little Runner 1485. And I'm on Twitter at The Real Hobo Dan. Drop us a line if you like the show or have a question and you'd like us to address on a future show. Music for today's podcast was provided by Your Tunes from Pixabay. Artwork was created using the AI program Midjourney with prompts written by myself.